I turned 18 on a Tuesday that felt smaller than it should have. No banners hung in the living room, no candles shaped like numbers, no excited voices counting down to midnight. Birthdays in my house were always quiet for me, acknowledged, but never celebrated. That kind of attention was reserved for my brother, whose milestones were treated like national holidays. My mother handed me a card while reminding me to take out the trash later. My father nodded once from his chair without looking up from the television. That was it. I told myself I didn't care. I'd learned how to shrink my expectations early on. But my grandmother came that afternoon. She arrived wearing her soft blue coat, the one that smelled faintly of lavender and old books. The moment she hugged me, something in my chest loosened. Grandma always hugged like she was afraid the world might steal me away if she didn't hold on tight enough. "Happy birthday, my girl," she whispered. She stayed longer than usual, watching me with those sharp, knowing eyes. Before she left, she slipped an envelope into my hand, curling my fingers around it gently. "Don't open it here," she said quietly. "This is for you. For your future." The way she said it made my heart race. That night, after the house settled into silence, I sat on my bed and opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a handwritten letter and a check. At first, the numbers didn't make sense. I blinked, leaned closer, then covered my mouth. $100,000. I felt like the air had been knocked out of me. Her letter was even heavier than the check. She wrote about watching me grow up in the shadows, about seeing how I worked harder just to be noticed, how I never asked for much, how I dreamed of college while being told to stay realistic. She said she saved this money over years because she believed I deserved a choice. A real one. "This is not a loan," she wrote. "This is not for anyone else. This is my belief in you." I cried so hard my pillow was soaked. For the first time in my life, someone had chosen me without conditions. I lay awake imagining classrooms, dorm rooms, libraries, and a future that didn't feel borrowed or temporary. I imagined a life where I wasn't the afterthought. Where I didn't have to shrink so others could shine. But beneath the excitement, fear crept in. My parents didn't believe in independence. Money, in our house, was never truly yours. It flowed toward my brother like gravity. He needed help. He always needed help. And everyone else was expected to understand. I hid the envelope deep in my bag and told myself not to worry. Grandma wouldn't have given me this if she didn't trust me. I was 18 now. An adult. I could make my own decisions. I didn't know then how quickly joy could turn into accusation. I didn't know that by morning, the gift meant to save me would expose the truth about my family. All I knew was that for one night, just one, I felt hopeful. And hope, it turns out, can be dangerous when you've grown up without it. The next morning, the house felt different, too quiet, like it was holding its breath. I walked into the kitchen and immediately knew something was wrong. My mother was standing by the counter with her arms folded tightly across her chest. My father sat at the table, phone in hand, jaw clenched. Neither of them said good morning. My stomach twisted. "Sit down," my mother said. I obeyed, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. "We know about the money," she said flatly. The words hit me like a slap. I opened my mouth to speak, but she continued before I could find my voice. "Your grandmother told your aunt." "Your aunt told me," she said, as if that explained everything. "And we've decided what needs to happen." "We've decided." I swallowed. It was for my college. My father finally looked up. His expression wasn't angry. It was worse, dismissive. "You can go to community college," he said. "Your brother is drowning in debt." There it was. The reason. The excuse. The familiar weight pressing down on my chest. My mother stepped closer. "He made mistakes. He's under pressure. You're strong, you can handle sacrificing a little." A little. $100,000. My future. Something in me cracked, not loudly, but cleanly. No, I said. The room froze. My mother laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. Don't be dramatic. I'm not, I replied, my hands shaking. Grandma gave that money to me. I'm using it for college. My father's chair scraped back as he stood. You're being selfish. Selfish. The word I'd heard my entire life whenever I wanted something for myself. My brother wandered in then, drawn by the raised voices. He leaned against the doorway, smirking. So this is about the money, he said. Relax. Just give it up. You don't even need that much. I stared at him. At the ease with which he assumed my sacrifice. At how comfortable everyone was asking me to disappear. I'm not giving it to you, I said. That's when the guilt started. My mother cried, loud, performative sobs about how I was tearing the family apart. My father talked about everything they'd done for me. My brother rolled his eyes and muttered about how ungrateful I was. They didn't ask what I wanted. They didn't care why the money mattered. They only cared that it wasn't going where they expected. By the afternoon, the story had shifted. I wasn't a daughter protecting her future, I was a problem. If you walk this path, my father warned, don't expect help from us. My mother added, your grandmother poisoned you against us. That night, I sat alone in my room, the walls feeling closer than ever. I replayed every conversation, every insult, every accusation. I realized something terrifying and freeing at the same time. They didn't see me as a person. They saw me as a resource. And resources were meant to be used. I held Grandma's letter in my hands and felt the weight of her faith in me. I thought about the life I wanted. The life they were trying to take before it even began. When I finally made my decision, it wasn't out of anger. It was out of clarity. I wasn't choosing money over family. I was choosing myself, because no one else ever had. I didn't leave in a rush. I left with intention. After the argument, my parents barely spoke to me unless it was to remind me how disappointed they were. The house felt hostile, every room charged with judgment. I knew if I stayed, they would wear me down. They always did. Guilt was their sharpest weapon, and I was tired of bleeding quietly. So I waited. I memorized their routines. The hours when the house was empty. The places where important documents were kept. I moved through my own home like a guest preparing to check out. One night, when everyone was asleep, I packed a single bag. Clothes I could layer. My birth certificate. My ID. Grandma's letter, folded carefully and tucked into the deepest pocket like armor. I stood in my room and looked around. The walls were bare, the furniture old. Nothing there held me anymore. Still, my chest tightened. Leaving wasn't dramatic, it was quiet and terrifying. No goodbye. No confrontation. Just absence. I slipped out before dawn. The air outside was cold, and for a moment I panicked. I had nowhere permanent to go. No safety net. Just a friend who'd offered her couch and the fragile belief that I could survive on my own. The first weeks were hard in ways I hadn't expected. Not just financially, but emotionally. I'd been trained to doubt myself, and now every decision felt enormous. Every bill, every application, every step forward reminded me how alone I was. I worked 2 jobs. I studied whenever I could. I learned how to stretch meals and sleep through exhaustion. Some nights, I cried silently into my pillow, wondering if I'd made a mistake. But something else grew alongside the fear. Strength. No one yelled at me when I came home late. No one told me my dreams were unrealistic. No one demanded I fix problems that weren't mine. For the first time, my effort went toward my future. Then the rumors started. My phone filled with messages from relatives asking how I could do this to my parents. I heard my brother was telling people I'd stolen family money. My parents claimed I'd abandoned them out of greed. No one asked me what happened. It hurt more than I expected, but it also clarified everything. If the truth didn't matter to them, then their approval shouldn't either. College acceptance letters arrived one by one. Scholarships followed. I cried again, but this time from relief. I was building something real, something no one could take from me. I sent Grandma a letter, careful not to reveal my location. I thanked her. I told her I was okay. I told her her gift was changing my life exactly the way she hoped. Her reply came weeks later. I always knew you'd find your way. Those words carried me through the hardest days. I wasn't free yet, not completely. The guilt still whispered. The fear still surfaced. But I was moving forward, step by step, learning who I was without being controlled. Leaving wasn't about running away. It was about walking toward a life where I didn't have to apologize for existing. And for the first time, the silence around me felt peaceful, not empty. It felt earned. Years passed like quiet waves, relentless but shaping me into someone I barely recognized, and yet, finally, someone I liked. I went from surviving to thriving. The money my grandma had given me, once a source of tension and fear, became the seed of independence. I earned my degrees, built a career, and discovered the power of my own decisions. Every choice, every success, felt like reclaiming pieces of myself that my parents had tried to control. I wasn't angry all the time anymore. I'd learned that anger could burn you out if you let it. I focused instead on clarity and self-respect. I lived my life openly, authentically, and on my own terms. I laughed louder. I traveled. I made friends who believed in me, not because I could do favors for them, but because I was worthy of love and respect. Then, one autumn afternoon, the unexpected happened, a message from my father. Simple, polite, and yet heavy with implication. We need to talk. Can we meet? I stared at the text for a long time. Part of me wanted to delete it immediately. Another part, curiosity, perhaps, wanted to see how much they'd changed. When we met, it wasn't at our old house. It was a quiet cafe, neutral territory. I arrived first, coffee in hand, nerves tighter than I'd expected. My parents walked in, older, smaller somehow, their shoulders weighed down by years of unspoken regrets. My brother trailed behind them, fidgeting with his phone. They tried to speak first, starting with apologies that felt rehearsed, a vague acknowledgement of mistakes and pain. My parents claimed they were proud of me now, that they'd finally realized they had been wrong. My brother, of course, looked as though he expected me to forgive everything without question. I listened. And when they were done, I smiled, not because I was cruel, but because I finally understood what my revenge truly was. You taught me something important, I said, calm and measured. You showed me exactly what love isn't. The pause that followed was exquisite. Their expressions shifted, shock, confusion, a hint of shame. I told them everything. How I'd survived without their support. How I'd used Grandma's gift exactly as she intended. How I had learned to make my own decisions, to trust myself, to value my own worth. I described the late nights, the struggle, the moments of doubt, and the triumphs. They listened, quietly, because this time I wasn't asking for approval. I wasn't pleading. I was simply telling the truth. Finally, I reached into my bag, took out my wallet, and left a tip on the table before standing. I wish you peace, I said softly, but not access to me. My life belongs to me. I walked out without looking back. No yelling. No tears. No need for dramatics. Just freedom, clean and full-bodied, flowing into every step I took. In the days after, I realized that my revenge had never been about hurting them. It was about becoming untouchable to their manipulation. It was about living fully, proudly, and unapologetically. And for the first time in my life, I understood the truest power. To live well is the sweetest revenge of all. No one could take my future from me. No one could rewrite the past. I had survived, and I had thrived. I had reclaimed myself. And that was enough.